In southern New Mexico, the amount of water that's in the Rio Grande at any given time is controlled by a series of dams and reservoirs. The portions of the Rio Grande near Las Cruces and Mesilla are heavily influenced by agriculture. To access this field trip location, if you're coming from New Mexico State's campus, take Avenida de Mesilla to Calle del Norte, and before crossing the Rio Grande, turn right off into a parking lot, which is also one of the access points for the bike trail. Greetings, plant enthusiasts, and thanks for joining me on our virtual field trip to the Rio Grande, not too far from Las Cruces, near Mesilla, New Mexico, where today we'll be looking at some plants in the active channel as well as the surrounding areas, which are quite disturbed for a variety of reasons. So today's a beautiful day to be looking at plants. Let's go wander around. The following is a public service announcement. When looking at plants in potentially wet areas, always bring a change of clothes. Populus, deltoides, or cottonwood, is in the Salicaceae family. Populus is the Latin word for popular, and deltoides means triangular. Cottonwood can grow to be large trees, although many of the cottonwood individuals that occurred in southern New Mexico were cut down decades ago. Cottonwood has triangular leaves with flattened petioles, which allow the leaves to flap and rustle in the wind, similar to that you see with aspen, and the buds are quite large. Here's a younger plant that established, and the leaves are simple and alternate. You can see this is an immature stem. The very small seeds for this plant have white cotton-like hair, which aid in dispersal in growth. Salix exigua, or narrow-leaf willow, is in the Salicaceae family. Salix is a Latin word for willow, and exigua refers to the weak growth form of this plant. Narrowleaf willow is a native large shrub that forms dense thickets, often along watercourses. The more mature stem branches in this species are a deep red color, and the leaves are very linear and alternate in arrangement. This species is dioecious, meaning that it has male unisexual flowers and female unisexual flowers on the same plant. There are many different uses for this plant, where the twigs were used to build sweat houses for treatment of rheumatism and colds. The bark is used to treat fevers and coughs and sore throats, and young twigs are used to make baskets, mats, and other products. Along the riverbank, you can see cattail and the narrowleaf willow, and when we look at this patch, we see that there's a bunch of seedlings of the narrowleaf willow. And the red stem really shows up well in this photo. Prosopis, pubescens, or screwbean mesquite is in the Fabaceae family. Prosopis is the Greek word for burdock, and pubescens means short, downy hairs. Screwbean mesquite is a native shrub or small tree with slender branches and very unique seed pods. The leaves are alternate and they're bipinnately compound. The seed pods for this species are unique in that they look like screws, hence the name screwbean mesquite. Similar to other species of mesquite, the seed pods are eaten, and the wood is used for a variety of things, including firewood. Baccharis, salicifolia, is in the Asteraceae family, and the common name for this species is mule fat, or some people refer to it as seep willow because of the willow-like nature of this species. Baccharis comes from the name for the god of wine, and salicifolia means salix-leaved, which is referring to the willow-like leaf. This native shrub is multi-stemmed and often occurs in arroyos or wetland areas or alongside streams or rivers. This species is dioecious, meaning that it has plants that either have male unisexual spikelets or female unisexual spikelets. The leaves look very willow-like. They're alternate and they have serrations on the edges or the margins. Ethnobotanically, this was used as a hair wash to prevent baldness and also as an eye wash. The young shoots were roasted and eaten in times of low food. Machaeranthera canescens, or hoary tansy aster, is in the Asteraceae family. Now, the word Machaeranthera comes from Machaeria, which means dagger, sword, and the remaining portion of that word is anther, or the flower portion. Canescens means short gray hairs. This is an annual to short-lived perennial species that typically occurs on sandy sites. This compound flower has purple ray flowers with a yellow disc. The filaries look like they were bent backwards. From an ethnobotanical standpoint, it was used to treat throat and nose problems as well as headaches, and it was also used as an eye wash. Ambrosia, acanthicarpa, in the Asteraceae family, is also known as flat spine burr ragweed. Ambrosia is the Greek for food of the gods, and acanthicarpa means having thorny fruits. This is an annual species often found in disturbed areas, and that can range from dry to moist sandy sites. Fruits on these species are burrs with one beak, and they're armed with many spines. Xanthium, strumarium, or rough cocklebur is in the Asteraceae family. Xanthium refers to the yellow dye made from the leaves, and strumarium comes from the Latin struma or tumor, which may refer to the burrs. This is an annual native species with a wide distribution, and it often occurs in disturbed areas and along water courses. The leaves are alternate and often deltoid in appearance, and the fruits are burrs. Leaves of this plant can be used to make a tea as a diuretic, but in large quantities it can be toxic. Also, this plant can be used to make yellow dye. Typha, domingensis, is in the Typhaceae family, and the common name for this species is southern cattail. Typha is derived from the Greek word typhe, which means marsh or fen, which is what you would expect for the habitat for this species. And domingensis refers to being from Santo Domingo. Cattails are perennial grass-like species, although in a different family. They have extensive rhizomes, and the stems are very erect and can get quite tall. As shown here, the stems are pithy. This species is monoecious, having male unisexual spikelets located above the female unisexual spikelets. The seeds are very small and have hairs which aid in dispersal. The stalks, roots, and seeds have been eaten for food, and the species is also used as thatch in houses and other construction. Cyperus esculentus is in the Cyperaceae family, or the sedge family, and its common name is yellow nutsedge. Cyperus comes from the Greek word that means sedge, and esculentus means edible. Yellow nutsedge is a widely distributed species found in moist soils and along rivers and streams. It is a robust plant, a perennial with rhizomes, and it has a strong triangular stem, as do other sedge species. This species has slender rhizomes with tubers at their tips. These tubers are edible, and roots and portions of the stem have been chewed to treat coughs. Distichlis spicata is in the Poaceae, and the common name for this species is saltgrass. The word distichlis comes from Greek meaning two-ranked, and this specifically is referring to the arrangement of the leaves. And spicata means spicate, which is referring to the inflorescence. Saltgrass is a native perennial mat-forming species, and it's mat-forming because it is rhizomatous in nature. This inflorescence shows the strong two-ranked nature of the leaves and the spicate inflorescence. Because of the mat-forming nature of the species and the habitat where it occurs, it can be confused with Bermuda grass. However, that strong two-ranked nature of the leaves as well as the spicate inflorescence helps distinguish it. This species is tolerant of saline soils and soils with high alkalinity. Ethnobotanically, this species has a lot of interesting uses. It's been taken as a laxative. It's been taken for pimples, heart medicine, as a treatment for gonorrhea, and used to treat common colds. It's also been used as a food source by some of the tribes, specifically the grain portions. Cynodon dactylon is in the Poaceae family, and the common name for this species is Bermuda grass. Cynodon is from the Greek word meaning dog's tooth, which is a common name for grass in general in Europe. And dactylon refers to the finger-like digitate inflorescence of this species, and that's a Greek derivation. Another mat-forming species that we're going to cover today is Bermuda grass, which is one of the more widely distributed species in the United States. It has both a stolon and rhizomatous modified shoot growth form, and this species is used often in lawns, golf courses, and also pasture grasses. It does a great job expanding and taking a foothold. Because it can occur in the same areas as saltgrass, one of the ways to distinguish this is the leaves aren't as strongly two-ranked, and the inflorescence has a digitate growth form, not spicate. In India, the juice is pressed from the leaves, seeds, and flowers and mixed with sugar and given for nausea. Sporobolus giganteus is in the Poaceae family, and the common name for this species is giant dropseed. The word Sporobolus is Greek for seed caster, referring to the seeds which are unlike a lot of grass seeds in that they're very slippery and so they spread quite easy. I think this gives this species a very unique feature that also makes it advantageous for some restoration purposes. And giganteus refers to its large size relative to other species in the same genus. Giant dropseed is a native perennial species that is a large, robust bunch grass. The species is typically found on sandy sites, and the inflorescence is contracted, having very short panicle branches. The collar areas have a visible tuft of hairs, and notably, the inflorescence on this species, as well as other species in the Sporobolus genus, is cleistogamous, meaning the inflorescence is partially enclosed within the sheath. The small seeds for this species were used to make bread or for mush, and the stems were used to make a brush, which was then used to clean cacti spines. Muhlenbergia asperifolia is in the Poaceae family, and the common name for this species is scratchgrass. The name for this species, Muhlenbergia, was named after a botanist from Pennsylvania whose last name was Muhlenberg, and asperifolia means rough-leaved. Scratchgrass is a perennial, native, rhizomatous grass that typically occurs in dense clusters like this. Scratchgrass grows in moist soils, and the culms are rather slender, but the inflorescences are very large. They're open panicles, and individual spikelets have one floret. Paspalum, distichum, is also known as knotgrass in the Poaceae family. The word paspalum comes from the Greek paspalos, which means millet, and distichum means two-ranked. Knotgrass is a perennial native species that has extensive creeping stolons, as shown here. The reproductive culms and the inflorescence has two branches, so it's paired. And the spikelets are spicate, meaning that they're spike-like coming off of the reproductive culm. Echinochloa, crus-galli, is also known as barnyard grass in the Poaceae family. Now the word Echinochloa comes from the Greek word for hedgehog, and crus-galli comes from Latin and is referring to the leg or thigh and gallus of a cock. This is an annual introduced grass that has stems that often at their base they are purple in appearance. This species is often found in disturbed areas, and the inflorescence has between 5 and 12 branches that are racemose. The large caryopses from this species make it a good food source. It was used by many humans in the past, and it still is a good wildlife forage, especially for birds. Playing around in the channel of the Rio Grande after they turn the water off is always fun. You can find some really interesting things like this tree stump here that has a Typha seedling as well as a Cyperus and some unknown grass. As the channel dries, the cracking is pretty dramatic, and in the case of this seedling here, this Cyperus is trying to get a toehold.